So why does overthinking and overanalyzing cause such a problem? Well, when there's money involved, a lot of opinions involved, perspectives we can't see, because perspectives are an abstract thing in the human mind, a lens that only covers that person's eyes, right? So it's hard to tell what that person's actually thinking even after what they say. Oh, don't worry about that. But then you don't worry about it, something happens. Oh, you were supposed to worry about that. I just said don't worry because I was trying to be nice, trying not to put pressure on you. So you overanalyze that. I mean, literally, it's like all these jobs for years, we're asking for people with experience. Well, you got to have 3, 4 years experience. Okay, well, now you add technology as a distraction where people communicate and express their opinions with each other. So now you're adding all these, analyzations from the opinions of others, where our mind is biological, or everybody would be a damn Sigma. Is everybody a Sigma? No. Why? Because we're biological. Computers, say AI, you can put, eventually, I don't know if they can now, but I'm guessing, you put a program into one robot, right? Well, they can Bluetooth it to another robot. Now, can you do that with us? When you tell me to look for something, can you send a picture to my head of exactly what I'm looking for? So you take ADHD into consideration. And, well, now we want people with 3 to 4 experience, no ADHD, no criminal record, this and that. Don't go after your dopamine, whatever you do. Because you go for a little bit of dopamine, then you want more dopamine, then all of a sudden you're out of control with your dopamine, right? So the fact that they wanted all this experience and then people didn't have that experience and felt there was no way to get it because they overanalyzed it. It's like, well, I can go to school. Oh yeah, I got to spend like 60 grand a year. Where am I going to get 60 grand? I see all these people with all these debts and they got no job. Well, yeah, so I'm going to spend 60 grand a year to go to school and then be like these people. Well, at least we'll have something in common. Spent all this money and got nowhere. Like literally this world feels like, we're not supposed to let opinions bother us, right? But we're supposed to go forward. We're supposed to stay in line and, not break the law and, respect people that need respected. But yet these people are the same people that have no respect for other people. And we see it. It's like you're giving me a life lesson, but yet I just watched you step on so many heads just so you had the ability to say, I'm your superior, listen to me. And that's not to say all of them. That's the problem with human complexity is that it's extremely difficult to know which one's which. You accept a contract and then you find out that, you're expected to do things that are immoral to you. Where there's other people that say, well, we don't care about morals. Okay, well, those are the people we want, right? But yet, it's like having your boss tell you, you're going to have to go to this conference with like 50 liberals, and you're right, you're going to have to change them to view the right side and leave their liberal ways behind. And if you can't do that, if you cannot do that, better go look for another job. And you lack experience with communication, let's say, how many people isolate now because they're able to, because they have a phone in the room that 15 years ago, they would have just been in that room with nothing except their thoughts. So now this is programming our minds to try to stay busy in a way that feels comfortable to us, feels non-threatening, Where society always feels threatening, right? We're analyzing, we're not supposed to analyze, right? Because when you analyze, but we are supposed to think for ourselves. Damn, getting myself all mixed up here, man. It just these thoughts alone are like contradicting themselves, and I'm overanalyzing. Like, how do you see through that when so many people are looking for their own opportunities and overriding other people's opportunities? And it's like, well, yeah, if I was in a foot race, I would just, pelt people with, BBs or something to distract them so I can be in first place. But you can't do that in a foot race, right? So it's like, how are you supposed to stop analyzing? Once you stop over analyzing, it's supposed to come natural to you. Like all those people that kept saying, well, if you have to think about it, you're lying. Well, it's hard to tell who's lying because you don't know who has to think about it. That's why we have to look at cues. We have to read people's gestures. We have to read their faces because through that you learn the patterns of, oh, this person blinks a lot when they lie. This person fidgets with something when they lie. And it's like, then they can change them patterns, right? Which makes it even more confusing. But the problem now is that we're told to stop overanalyzing, yet we're supposed to stop overanalyzing, but we're supposed to think for ourselves, and that takes patterns. That's what experience is that you stop over analyzing because you learn, like with a wheelbarrow filled with, bricks, and it's like you're walking over ground that's unlevel. The first thing you have to learn is go at the right speed. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow. You go too slow, you're going to get stuck. You go too fast, it's going to tip over before you get to where you're going. So while you're pushing this wheelbarrow, you're sensing, the weight distribution. You feel it go to one side. Now you're overthinking, so you go to, recompensate for, the whatever you want to call it. And when you go to recompensate, oh shit! Well, the wheel just hit another bump and sent the wheelbarrow this way while you're pulling this way. So it's like, there it goes. I just did all that overanalyzation. These people are watching me. Now these bricks are spilled. Now your brain, because of your patterns, is saying somebody is going to say something. And now you're in your imagination. You're playing the scenario, whether it's just a image that, it's more conceptualized than the actual video, because the video would take time, which means you'd have to sit there and, disassociate and think, okay, well, I'm going to completely visualize this scenario. Who has the time to visualize that scenario fully? I mean, come on. That's why the damn wheelbarrow tipped over in the first place, was because they didn't have the time to sit there and think, okay, well, should I go this fast? I guess let's just put it into a mathematical equation, right? If we had time. And I know this is just an example, so you take this into consideration for, other scenarios, and it's not just a wheelbarrow filled with bricks. It's literally everything. When you're expected to do something that goes against what you believe, but you have to because it's money, but if you weren't forced to, then you would do absolutely nothing at all. So that's another part of the complexity, is that when you're too lenient on people, they don't overanalyze, and then they just don't care. But the thing I see is that all these jobs, they wanted all this experience, and then less and less people were getting that experience. And now what's happening? now we have like nobody with that experience, and everybody's talking about, oh, nobody wants to work. Well, I mean, if the bar was giving out free drinks all day, you think anybody would want to go to work? They ain't got to pay for the alcohol, so you think they're gonna go for work while they're on their phone getting their dopamine that they're not being charged every 10 seconds? You think they're gonna want to go to work over their dopamine and analyze all this shit and have anxiety because they're thinking this person's gonna react this way, and then they do, and now your brain's clashing with itself, saying, I put all my focus into what was going to happen. It happened, and now my brain is off wired because I was thinking about the situation happening, hoping that it didn't, rather than thinking of a solution when it did happen. So it's not that people are slow, it's that on a biological level, because we're not inherently fast as a speeding bullet, we're expected to fall into those patterns so we don't have to overanalyze.